to Down Your Unders. Down Your Unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode 187 of the Art of War Down Under podcast. My name is always Adam Camilleri, and I am joined by two intrepid tentacled gentlemen, as I've decided to call them. First of which is a young man from a coast of America. I don't know which one. I can't be bothered finding out. I've been there at some point in my life. His name's Tyler. Surname's Bortel. Hello, mate.
Howdy. West Coast, best coast. Got to represent. Good to be here.
Oh, absolute pleasure, mate. And then the second gentleman, of course, is the wonderful Dusty one, Dustin Henshaw. He should play T-Sons with a name like that, but no, he is a denizen of the Hive Mind. Hello, mate. How you doing?
I'm always great to be here, so I'm happy. And I've tried T-Sons. They're too dusty. Too
dusty for Dusty. That is a moniker. We are here to do an episode on the state of the super faction for the Hive Mind, and I pulled in two gentlemen who have been semi-stalwarts in this. Dustin definitely. Tyler has faded recently, but he was staying strong. It's fine.
Tyler.
It's fine. It's fine. Everyone has their moments. He'll be back. It's okay. Take a break while you can, my man. But these two gentlemen are absolute champions of everything Hive Mind, and I definitely wanted to get that perspective and that expert perspective on for you guys, because we're going to give you guys a rundown. We're going to give the super faction the once over, the medical examination to see how healthy it is right now, what is going for it, what is going against it, and what are the best things you can do out there into or for this set's super faction. The super faction is the smallest in the game. So that being, it comprises, Tyranids, of course, having one of probably the most expansive codexes that we've seen so far. Apart from Space Marines, they have the most detachments and I think unit options available for one single faction. But then we have Gents of the Cult, who we know are getting a codex at some point. Yes. Oh, what a statement. And that's about it. Then we have a bit of Brew Brothers talk, which I know Dustin is extremely excited to talk about there. Apart from that, you can join us over on the part 2 at Art of War Down Under and get me chatting these two gentlemen through a swathe of amazing listener questions. If you want to get involved there, Patreon is the place to be. Tyler, you have a brand new freaking show, and it has been reskinned, as some of my shows have been, has a new lease on life, and there's a new location. If people want to find it, where can they go?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in hearing a little bit more about bugs from my perspective, check out our show Take All Comers, or TAC, on the Stat Check Network. Find it anywhere you'd find Stat Check, and if you're a fan of this, I'm sure you're a fan of that. You can find us on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast. We record live Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Pacific if we're not at an event, so look forward to seeing us there.
Pour one out for Best in Faction, the former home of your show. Best in Faction is one of the longest and was one of the longest reigning networks and or conglomerates of amazing, awesome people that we've had. And definitely met some of my best mates in this community through there. Mitch Pelham, being one of those. So they've gone on to bigger and better things. And so have you gents. You've moved on to, the Stat Check crew. We love them. Big fans. I'm a patron. Hopefully you guys are as well. But Dustin, you're doing some exciting things as well, especially with the Rids, our good mate Scary.
The Riz, yes. He's joined the Stutter Scrub crew, so obviously we are still doing that podcast long going now. I think it's about 3-4 years we've been going now, like 151 episodes. But we record every other Wednesday night. We might start doing it live because people have been requesting it. And of course, I also do the Warhammer Meditations with my buddy Adam here every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time-ish. And that's also recorded live on YouTube. So anywhere you can find podcasts or watch on YouTube, by all means, join us there because we love putting out content. Obviously, we're here too. So this is the third, fourth one this week. Let's go.
Yeah, there is no chill. There is no chill. Ever. Never so there. All right, gentlemen, we're doing that holistic overview of the super faction. Tyler, starting with you. Where are Nids at in the game right now? Hot takes.
Nids right now might be in contention for, other than Guard, like the most underrated faction that people are not playing it right now. And that's probably because they line up pretty questionably in singles. But as we saw at Pyra and as we're beginning to see at a couple of other events, and there is still juice, but man, oh man, might it not be worth the squeeze out of this codex. I think that we're doing all right, but it is asking a lot of people if you want to actually make it happen. That's where I think Nids are at right now.
Totally fair enough. Dustin, what about yourself?
Can I ask you a question about this first? Can we really still call this a super faction at this point, since they can't even ally with each other anymore?
I decided that yes, we can, but you are correct.
I'm not bitter or anything. I'm just asking what other people's preferences are.
Rest in peace to the greatest faction in the history of the game. Forces come back. I still miss you, baby. I promise. I'll change. It'll be different this time.
Yeah, seriously, we'll all change for you. We'll do it. I promise.
The forces of the Hive Mind, RIP. You are correct. This is kind of two factions in trenchcoat, rather than being a true bunch.
I mean, I'm happy calling them a super faction, but yeah,
discussing things as equals.
Yeah.
But we're doing, mate, I'm stitching this shit together as I can. Just leave me alone.
I was just curious for people's opinions. Like I said, I'm not bitter. I'm just angry. But for Tyranids right now, I agree with Tyler. But for teams, I think we've talked about this before. I actually think in like 8-man teams, even 5-man questionably, but 8-man's for sure. They are a very strong contender to be an auto included in a team of 8 if you have a good Tyranid player. Which I will emphasize, you do need a good Tyranid player.
Yes.
But if you do have one, they are very, very strong for teams because they have very few matchups where they will get completely blown out. And if you can avoid those ones, and to be honest, they're actually few and far between. It's just, as Tyler was saying, in singles, they do have those rough matchups. And while they will not lose by much, they will still lose it. But for teams, that's great. If that's normally a faction that'll blow out other armies that you have, like they're great to be able to keep that differential close, and they have some really, really good tools in their codex. It is, I'm happy to say, and I will confidently say, it is probably one of the most balanced codexes in the game right now. It is.
Legitimately, Tyler and I were saying this in the green room, being like, oh, we wish they were the standard for codex. If every codex was the same as Nids, as in it was fleshed out, flavorful, but nothing was overtly more powerful than the other.
Exactly.
The game would, we'd all be. What's on The Simpsons? A world without lawyers. We'd all be holding hands like dancing in the sunshine.
The fact of the matter is, Nids are a codex that have serious representation from 4 different detachments that all succeed at a relatively comparable level in the singles environment. At least, like, what other faction can say that?
It's true.
Yeah, probably only Marines would even come close.
I mean, on the subject too, pour one out for Crusher Stampede while we're at it, because
nope, not at all. Not in hell.
Paying for their sins. It was the least Tyranid faction that detachment that has ever existed, and it was so bonkers. All right, Gene. Sorry, I do want to echo what you said. If you are out there and you are a Tyranid general of renown, you are a specialist at Tyranids, you are actually a commodity in teams. I believe, and I'm of the opinion that Tyranids are first or equal first best stable put up. As in, like, I only have to dodge 1, maybe 2 matchups for this to be a bad idea. And that's if your opponents have those factions and if they're willing to put them into you and not somebody else and risk not getting their big scores. It's because, like you guys have said, their reds are very red, and then it's just a plethora of like light green and yellow till the end of days in your scoring matrix for teams. And so they're extremely stable put up if you wanted an option for that. Dustin, we'll start with you on this one. Where is GSC at? Because they have had one of the most meteoric descents of any faction in history.
Yeah, and it makes me both happy and sad at the same time. See, obviously their win rate is pretty low right now. They have very, 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 very low representation. I think mainly because a lot of the people that jumped on them when they were, let's face it, they were broken when they first came out, just being able to respawn infinitely for free. That just the damage, the output. It was a little ridiculous, and a lot of people jumped off them when they got to a more, let's say, balanced level. In my opinion, they are still extremely strong and very underrated. I have still had great success with them. I will still play them any singles event, anytime a team will let me play them, which most of the time they're okay with me playing them, because they do have really good put-ups as well. There are a lot of they're similar to me than the Nids in terms of there are no matchups where I just lose. I will be able to score points in every matchup, no problem. And they have what I think is a better potential to blow out more armies. Like if you get them a good matchup, they have a higher potential than Nids to actually crush your opponent because of the damage output they can do that a lot of armies cannot stop them from doing. The issue that I'm seeing a lot of people do is they're going a little too far into their deep strike shenanigans, and because like hypercrypt is a thing right now, and Vanguard Marines even, there's just a lot of people that are ready to deal with that. And if they can deal with the Hypercrypt and the Marine Vanguard doing that, then G-Slick will become a whatever. These guys just die when I overwatch them kind of thing.
So that's the we call it the meta squish.
Yes,
like they're not overtly being targeted, but they're being squished in the middle of of people hunting two other things.
Yeah, exactly. Which we can pivot from. We absolutely can. You just got to do it.
What's the pivot? Is it your truck spam nonsense with your
not even truck spam? But trucks are definitely a thing. They're definitely a thing. I see everybody bringing the triple demo acolytes, which is good. I feel like 3 is too many, but that's my opinion. You do have some more things that are on the ground, like either with trucks or, dare I say, grinders. Yes, you heard me say it. They are actually better than people think.
Fair. So pivoting over to you, Tyler, how do you feel and where do you feel GSC is at?
I'm going to pretty firmly disagree with Dustin there. I think that GSC are in an absolutely awful place, and while I think that Nids is an example of GW at their absolute best in terms of rules writing and game balancing, I think that GSC are probably the poster child of doing it absolutely wrong. They completely misidentified what made that faction broken and took away all of the fun parts while leaving all of the stupid parts, and that is just an awful thing for a faction to be. The way that you win with GSC right now is you table your opponent before they're able to score any points, and that is a fundamentally not a very good way to win a tournament, and B, a plan and that is asking for failure at several different points. And even when it does work, it is not a pleasant experience for anyone involved. I am really down on GSC right now, and I say that as someone who tried a lot of different things to make that faction work.
Yeah, I do. I 100% echo what you're saying there, Tyler. They were a feel bad experience at every level of the game, especially in the pure index hammer version that we had initially. Pre-nerf GSC was one of the most unfun things that I've done in a while. We had bad terrain rules at the start edition as well. Like I think there was a couple of games where I would start my army out of line of sight and essentially hunkered down in a ruin to not get neophyted and such, and then I would just be unable to leave my ruin for the entire game because my ruin would be 1.1 inch lined by jackals. And if I walked around the bottom of the thing, I took like 12 mortal wounds for the effort. And I'm like, how did this happen? How did we get here? And then that was to say nothing in addition to about neophytes being extremely efficient shooting blocks that with the best recursion we'd ever seen in the game, and acolytes killing everything with zero effort for 0 points. It felt like, at least, and now they're quite expensive. I know Dustin he's the one of those persistent guys who will play nothing else. He's a dog with a bone, or an acolyte with a mining laser. I don't know. There's an analogy.
Seismic cannon. Come on, I don't carry around mining lasers. What do you think I am, a savage?
Man, no one even knows what a seismic cannon is.
I know.
You guys made that up. It's nonsense. Anyway, how bad/good was the data slate for Tyranids by Tyler?
For Tyranids, not for GSC, but specifically for Nids.
We'll do GSC next. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. The slate put Nids in a bit of an interesting spot. Not a whole lot changed that affected us directly, other than the points costs, which were punitive and unnecessary. We were a sub 50% win rate faction, and most lists, mine included, went up maybe 50, 60 points, which felt pretty silly. But a lot of our biggest predators got knocked down a slate, so we really appreciate that. Unfortunately, one of Nids' few, what I would properly say is bad matchups, is Necrons, and moving into a meta that is absolutely Necron dominated has been really bad for Tyranids in singles play. That being said, the biggest winner of the data slate was not Necrons, it was Custodes, and they are one of our biggest prey. So kind of a wash at the end of the day. I don't think that it's ended up in that different of a place than they started, but it's probably a little bit lower down if I had to sum it all up.
Fair. What about yourself, Dustin? Where do you think Nids are at?
Yeah, I would agree with that. They didn't get anything that's too crazy, and like the Tyrannifex going down is nice, but not a huge deal. Same with like the Trigon. So there wasn't anything directly making them better, but it was a kind of a side. Like Tyler was saying, Necrons were a big predator of theirs, and they got hit a little bit more. So it was like, all right, well, we're kind of a better spot. But overall, I don't think they moved too much. If anywhere, they moved a little down, but not nowhere crazy.
I'll throw a bone to the Screamer Killer, which went down enough to
That's
be
fair.
in consideration again. I really appreciate that. I did put them on the table. They were very silly, and they did promptly exit the list. But for 10 minutes there, it seemed like a good idea.
It was fun.
Beautiful. Love it. Dustin, with you, mate, how and where are at GSC post-slate? Better, worst, the same, or indifferent?
Well, I mean, they got their pure strains that went down in points, man. It's freaking amazing, right?
Oh, game changer.
Game changer. But no, actually, it was a similar kind of side buff that Tyranids got, because while they didn't get touched, that means their kill power that they did keep didn't go anywhere. So they kind of got, in terms of where they were before, they did go up a bit, in my opinion, because they had some other things that were just really good go down while they didn't really move, because nothing of theirs changed aside from the pure strains, which you'll see a couple of them here and there because they are now the cheapest infantry you can take that have infiltrated base. I mean, it's not terrible, but that didn't really change anything. It was everything else going. It was a predator of theirs going up, so they kind of got a little bit better because of it. Not that it really changed anything in their standing.
Yeah, fair. Very fair. I'm of the same opinion. I would like Tyler to take a moment and pontificate and sell Nids to people on the basis of eating Custodes in their boots, because I think that's something people need to know. It needs to be highlighted. The fact that they prey on on the most played faction in the game at the moment. I think apart from overall Space Marines, and so that is just a big selling point for a lot of people. So explain.
Yeah, absolutely. I would also comment, and real quick before we move off of the GSC slate, that I do love pure strains. I think that's a great change. But also, we did get the designer's commentary change where you can resurrect guys while they're not on the table, which is a massive, massive buff to neophytes if you play them at a high level. And I am very excited about that change. And I don't think that got a lot of coverage. But if you pick up your unit, you can get guys back before arriving from Deep Strike now. You still can't do it afterwards, but the ability to coherency shenanigan yourself out of combat and then have at least 3 seismic cannons back before Deep Striking, very nice. But as far as Nids into Custodes is concerned, there's kind of 2 different Nids lists that I'm saying. Like we said here, there's a number of different Nids detachments that have some level of viability. But the big 2 are Invasion Fleet and Unending Swarm.
Yep.
Both of which I think have incredibly good play into Custodes. Starting off with the Exocrine, which is the Custodes' least favorite data sheet in the game. It's a whole bunch of Strength 8, AP 3 damage with access to Ignores Cover, with D6 plus 3 blast shots at a very, very reasonable price point. They probably should have gone up, and they didn't, and we love that. So Exocrines are fantastic at murdering Custodes. Maliceptors are fantastic at murdering Custodes. Yep. And Carnifexes with Death Spitters and Old One Eye in Invasion Fleet are incredible at murdering Custodes. So we've got all these different tools that really put the hurt on them. And Custodes are an army that does not like battle shock. They obviously have fairly good leadership across the board, lots of lead 5, lots of lead 6. But once you're able to cause as a single shock failure, that army falls apart lickety split. They're very reliant on their stratagems for durability, and if you can get in there and mess with them, that's great. They're also an army that has very few units, an army that's very easy to screen. They like to ingress a lot, and man, oh man, are Nids good at blocking ingresses and screening, which kind of brings us into the Unending Swarm as the greatest screening army in the game right now. It's not close. You go first into Custodes, and a unit of 20 gargoyles will not be letting them leave their deployment zone for about 3 turns. And it's very easy to just rack up points against Custodes while they're trying to fight their way through an unending field of gargoyles and shooting them to pieces. I think it's a reliably green to very green matchup. It is something that in a team setting we are always hunting for, because as Custodes are supposed to be a very, very strong build, but if they defend, which they so often like to do, they can get really punished for that when it's in the water.
Yep, totally agree. And is a huge talking point. The only downside I'd say is that if you do catch them napping and they get the table pick for whatever chance and stick you on a heavy, the Exocrines get a little worse, but then it's still just like the gargoyles. The gargoyles absolutely drain.
The heavier the table, the better that are at the end of the day for Nids.
Yeah, you don't get to kill them as fast as, but the scoring just goes through the roof.
Because at the end of the day, particularly on WTC tables, no matter how heavy the board, you can see them when they're on the objectives.
Correct.
Other than maybe one safe one. So you screen them off the safe one, you shoot them off the not safe one, and they don't have ranged firepower. Oh my God. Custodes players are so damn greedy. They refuse to take Calladii. And if you don't have any threat that can shoot at an exocrine, the exocrine shoots you 5 times. And that's just not something Custodians can handle.
Yeah, that's correct. That is correct. You do not they do not have a single gun in the infantry list that will scratch the chitin. Chitin?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think we had this discussion before, and there is no right way to say it because
there is no
everybody's
right.
right.
The English language is as dumb as it comes. Terrible codex. Terrible. Worst codex. What adjustments need to be made for this meta, if any? If we were to put out a couple of ideas about if anybody had a pre or post slate, concept, what should they adjust or what should they change for, say, an influx of brutalizing Iron Storms and or Necrons and or any other top contenders you guys can think of?
I mean, in terms of like list changes for Nids right now?
Yeah. Well, you can start with GSC if you want. We just talk about Nids for a bit. I like to switch back and forthies.
I mean, for GSC, like I said, I just think 2 neophytes with the Primus in there is the best way to start. Two blobs of 20 and at least 2 demo charge units are ubiquitous. And the rest is, depending on what you need at least 1 Ridge Runner, maybe 2 with all the 2-up saves that are in there. And you need trucks in there because you need on-the-ground threats instead of relying purely on the deep strikes. Because GSC do have a lot of play with deep strikes, but they need to be able to play on the ground as well. And I could do an entire 100-minute episode on GSC and tactics with them, but I know a lot of people are set in them and how they're played. So that's a longer conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I might pick your brain on a couple of things here and there, but you're saying that strip back, maybe 10-20% of the stuff you had arriving from reserve and diversify that to things that'll start on the board and generate you value, rather than just betting that you will be able to walk on deep strike somewhere and do something, because everyone right now is, definitely behooven to stop you doing that stuff.
Yeah, and have at least one thing that can rapid ingress and do something well.
Yeah. What is that? What is that? Sorry.
I've got a great answer for that question. I think the pure strains are absolutely going to fill that role, and people are not talking about it enough. I think a 10-man pure strain unit with a Patriarch is an absolutely fantastic thing to slot into your list if you're trying to figure out what to do with GSC right now. It does like 4 different things at once. It blocks all of the infiltration because of the way the infiltrating redeploy works. Those 11 models on 32s and a 50, cover the whole midboard really comfortably if you win that defender roll-off. So if you're also playing something that infiltrates like an aberrant unit, which we can talk about aberrants later, totally screens them out, keeps all of your opponent's infiltrators out of the way. You redeploy them into reserve. The Patriarch has this beautiful, beautiful rule where at the start of every fight phase, every unit within 6 takes a battle shock check. And once per game, that bubble goes from 6 inches to 12, which essentially turns him into like a diet Moloch, kind of, because you can pop that on the turn he ingresses. So at the start of your opponent's fight phase, everyone within 12 of this guy who just deep struck, ostensibly behind a wall, so he didn't get shot at, is taking a battle shock, and anyone who fails will be shocked for all of your player turn. So you can exploit their lack of defense and civ access, their lack of objective control in terms of secondaries.
Yep.
And run in, and this is a unit that is, moving 8 plus advance and charge. It is one of the most effective ways to deal with infiltrators, especially if they bring that damn librarian that people seem to love at the mid tables a whole lot, to just remove that unit from the game immediately and let your deep strikers do the rest of their stuff. And it manages to be a threatening ingress and charge package for only like 235 instead of 400 points, which is what we were spending on aberrants in the past. So I think they're a really compelling package for that reason.
And that's the big talking point, right? Because 10 aberrants or even 5 aberrants are so over or underkill for just about every target they can go into, apart from other, Terminator-esque variants that, to me, at least, I don't hate the idea of aberrants, but I hate the idea of feeling like my opponent can force me to use them to my disadvantage. There are very few units like those super units that come in that price band that are only melee or only shooting. You will find that usually they'll be better at one or the other, but usually they're superstars at one of those things. Aberrants can only smack, and there are some units in the game that only, if you can't get within demo charge range of them as the Tyranid player and neophytes don't hurt them, you have to hit them with your Aberrants. So I do like the idea of having a Aberrant light unit, like there's something in the middle, something between, scratching the paint with the little claws on your acolytes and, absolutely ruffle stomping them into the sun with your Aberrants. Something in the middle. Feels good.
Yeah, I think that Aberrants were necessary when CSM were top dog. They provide a lot of solutions to problems that Chaos Space Marines can present to you. And with Chaos Space Marines falling by the wayside, I think they are at this point just a little bit too expensive for you to be able to get that mileage out of into the things that are in the meta. Like the best thing that they can run into is Wraiths, because with that damn Technomancer, you do get anti-infantry 2 up against that unit. But that's a bit of a situation to orchestrate when we're talking about a unit that reactive moves. That's just not a thing that Nids that Aberrants can really go after. Even off an ingress, you're just never hitting that charge. So unless you're also playing the board really heavily with a lot of Brood Brothers, I think that they're probably something to be avoided at this point, which is unfortunate because I love them. But it's just the way
Dustin,
it is.
I know you've got feels. I don't know if you have things to actually disagree with there, but definitely you're having a feeling right now.
Oh, I have lots of feelings, of course, but everything that Tyler said was true, and he's given away some of my tricks, because there was actually a time that I ran the Patriarch by himself specifically to have him as a budget Moloch, because it actually made a big difference in some games. Having him with cheaper G-Stealers now is just a bonus. So yes, that is definitely one of my options for. I have 3 options that I kind of toy between with the Rapid Ingress. Well, 4 if you include the Aberrants, but like Tyler said, they're kind of out of favor now, just in terms of they're not going to get a lot of value, and they're just so freaking expensive for what we use them for. So right now, the Patriarch with G-Stealers is one of them. Oddly enough, an Acolyte squad with close combat weapons and a Locust and the free Heroic is another, because he'll get the Rapid Ingress if you charge. If your opponent's setting up a charge is really important for them, they can charge in, sure. But if you Rapid Ingress and be able to Heroic for free, and the Locust lets you fight first, which can be game-changing in a lot of situations. Now, that said, that squad doesn't hit as hard as I'd like it to. That is very, very, very situational, so that one usually doesn't make any of the big cuts. Another one was, like I said, the Aberrants, but the big one that I have fallen in love with, and if you are a GSC player and you haven't tried this, I implore you and encourage you to try it, is a Rock Grinder with a Saboteur and a 5-man Acolyte squad inside of it.
Oh, you didn't say the thing I thought you were going to say. Damn it. All right, tell me about this Rock Grinder. I thought you were going to say Metamorphs, but keep going.
I've tried them too. But,
look at him. I don't even have to do anything. They're just making the content. Go, boys, go.
Okay, so let me paint the picture for you, all right? This Rock Grinder with 5 Acolytes and a Saboteur. And if it Rapid Ingresses, that means it can move 12. The guys will get out of it. And you'll have 2 grenade strats, because Acolytes can throw a grenade and the Saboteur will do it for free. So you're doing mortal wounds from them. You'll have 4 demo charges. One of them that's going to be hitting on 2s because of the Saboteur. And then his out of line of sight gun. Sure, great, whatever. But then you're also going to get a charge from the Grinder, which its base stat for its base ability is basically a grenade strat when it charges in. And you can tank shock with it at strength 10, which against a lot of things is going to be 12 dice. Even a bigger thing is going to be 10. On average, that alone, before you even shoot any of the guns or anything that's going on there, like not including the demo charges, you're doing like an average of like 10 to 12 mortal wounds. I have consistently killed so much stuff with that one little Rapid Ingress unit. There was a game that I killed 9 Exalted and Angron with it. I cannot tell you guys enough how much I love this little package, to the point that I'm actually bringing 2 of them now to see if I can still do it with 2 units. It's a little harder. It's a little more clunky to have 2 of them because that's a lot of things off the board. But one of them, oh my God, I love it. I highly recommend trying it if you haven't yet.
All right. So what were you going to say, Tyler?
No, I want to talk about it. Metamorphs, I think, were in a similar spot to the Aberrants, where they were an absolutely fantastic tech piece while Chosen were running around as the big bad, because you infiltrate your fight first unit of Chosen, or not of Metamorphs, and suddenly unit of Chosen can't do anything about them. They just hold points. But nowadays, I don't think they're nearly as exciting. What I'm curious about this unit here, this Rock Grinder, I do love my Rock Grinders, so I would not mind putting them back on the board. My concern is that they're going to be a little bit table dependent. I really struggle to bring vehicles that rapid ingress on WTC terrain in particular. There's a lot of boards where that's not super applicable, and where your opponent, if they know what they're doing, can put some pretty big dampers on the screen there. Not to mention that, like, you're just handing over an assassinate point on a plate, but the damage output is real. Like, the math for what you have said checks out, and it's interesting enough that I'm suddenly excited to try this. So I'm skeptical, but I'm not. I don't doubt it, if that makes sense. It's interesting.
All right, let's transition over to the next little section. What is each sub-faction doing? So we'll start off with Nids. We'll just talk about GSC for quite a bit. What does the best GSC? What does the best Nid list look like? I just said the thing and did the thing. Boo.
You did the opposite thing.
I did. Is the best list Invasion Fleet? Is it Nexus? Is it Endless Swarm? Is it blah blah Vanguard? What is it, yes, and what is it doing? What is it doing that makes it feel Nids, and what is it doing that is good in the game?
Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, I think it a little bit depends on if you're asking for singles or for teams, and it also a little bit depends on what terrain format you're talking about.
Let's do singles first, and then we'll talk teams.
Sure. I think in singles, the best Tyranids list is probably Invasion Fleet, which hurts me to say, but it probably edges out the Unending Swarm in a couple of different matchups, particularly if you're looking at like a GW format in terms of terrain, where those firing lanes are just a lot longer. And I think Lennon is really kind of locked in what this list looks like. It's a pile of Exocrines and Maliceptors surrounding a Hive Tyrant, Old One Eye, and the 2 Fexes, and probably 30 Gargoyles and some scoring, a couple Pyrovores and a Biovore, just playing Warhammer at a really effective level. Yeah. The list doesn't do anything exceptionally exciting, but it has all of the tools that you need to do. It's got the Neurolictors, it's got the damage, it's got some shooting, it's got some, it doesn't have much combat, but it has a little bit of combat, and it has move blocking. So it's a very balanced, well-rounded way to play Warhammer that results in a lot of really small wins into the field. And I think it's probably the best thing that Nids are putting up right now if your hope is to win a singles event.
Well, it's interesting you say that. It's unfortunate that the Invasion Fleet is the best one, because it definitely is not the best. Like, design when, a book comes out with 5 new detachments in it, and you're like, well, I guess I'm playing the one I was already playing. That feels bad, but I will say props to GW, because it looks like that whatever planning period they've gone through, the index detachment that they've given us for every army, apart from Drakari, was usually a top 3 detachment for that faction, if not one of the best. So we were already playing on the better side of the codexes before that, because definitely can say that for Gladius, you definitely say it for Reanimation Legion or whatever it is for that's probably easily the 3rd best. It seems like for Necrons now, and I mean, Rad Cohort for whatever for Admech.
They have detachments.
Second best. No, they have 2. They have 2.
They only have 2.
Yeah, they only have 2. I don't know what the rest of them do. I don't know if anybody knows. It's a mystery to all. Yeah, but you know what I mean. So absolutely, I echo what you're saying. Invasion Fleet, mostly because it has just the most straight line damage increase of any of the detachments.
And also durability increase. That battle tactic reactive feel no pain goes so damn far.
Absolutely. And I got to say, the best thing about the vast majority of the time is just the data sheets. The data sheets are kind of good enough already that you just need the basics to make it work. Gargoyles have all their speed on their data sheet. Sure, you can infiltrate them and make them a little bit better. Same as Exocrines, same as Maliceptors. The most powerful things in your book are powerful because of the data sheet, not because of the rules. And so therefore, you can just pick the things that will just enhance them by another 20%, and then you're off to the races with a decent core of your list, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Gargoyles are easily a top 5 data sheet in the game. Exocrines, Maliceptors, Neurolictors all probably make the top 20. And Biovore in there too somewhere. Like we are stacked in terms of excellent, efficient things that just play Warhammer really well. They're just not necessarily always the most exciting things, depending on what you're looking for out of an army.
All right, Dustin, singles GSC, and then we'll do teams for Nids and teams for GSC. So singles GSC, what is it? What is going for it? What is going against it? And what is strong about it?
Singles for GSC, you either go, like Tyler said, and try to table your opponent before they can play the game, which has a lot of fail points, or you go so hard in MSU with a couple of kill points. Okay, Let me. If you want to do the best way for singles GSC, you bring Brood Brothers. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
100%.
You take killing power from GSC, and then you take board control and presence. Like, and I'm talking chimeras with like Catachin or regular infantry, and you take 500 points of that because you can take so much of that in there.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. Singles, you 100% take 500 points of Brood Brothers, and then you kill pressure with GSC. Done. But whatever your flavor might be. I don't think there's much else.
That's totally fair.
I think go ahead.
I think we can talk for about an hour and a half about exactly what the optimal use of those 500 points is. But at the end of the day, it's a bunch of board control. The units you want to look at, and you can pick your favorites, are Catachins, Cadians, Taroks, Chimeras. What are they called? The little bomb robots.
It was Cyclops Demolition.
Cyclops Demolition Vehicles and Kasrkin. Those are like and maybe Sentinels. Those are like the 7 board control data sheets that I think are worth looking at. And then if you're spicy, you can look at the indirect, but I don't think that's the right call. But yeah, that's all there. And then, like Dustin said earlier, the other part of it writes itself. The 3 Primuses, the 20 Acolytes, the 40 Neophytes, they kind of auto-populate. And at that point, you're debating what to do with about an aberrant size number of points. And if that's aberrance, you're done. And if it's something else, that's where the play is.
All right, circling back, Tyranids in teams. What is different from their singles play lists to their teams play lists? And does it really open anything up, or is it pretty much just doing what you're already doing, just doing it against an opponent that, likely you're better into?
The best Tyranids list in Swarm is unquestionably the Unending Swarm. I think I said Swarm instead of teams there. But the best Nids list...
We all knew.
It was just so keen.
This has been and always will be my favorite way to play bugs, and I am so glad to see it on top finally. The Unending Swarm provides so many tricks, so much denial, while maintaining access to a lot of that really effective shooting that it's just... it is backbreaking to play against if you're inexperienced into it or if it's not something you match up well into. Unfortunately, it has a number of things that it doesn't match up quite as well into, but it goes from being anything can be blunted army to a several things can be obliterated and anything can be blunted army, which makes it just an incredibly useful tool to have. That list looks like, there's a couple different versions of it. It definitely looks like at a minimum 40 gargoyles.
Yep.
And 3 exocrines. And then you can either push the bodies a lot more. You can take a Turvagon, Venomthropes, whole pile of Termagants. You can take tons of MSU Gargoyles and Hormagaunts and Lone Ops, which are all fantastic. Obviously, you're taking Neurolictors no matter what, but like regular Lictors, Death Leaper can fill in as well. Or you can push the damage a little harder, keep it in that probably, I think Golonka from Poland had a pretty solid interpretation of this. I think he was on 10 gargoyles as like all of his Gribblies, and then focused on the on triple exocrine, double Maleceptor, and a T-Fex with an acid spray, which we can discuss whether or not that means later. But there's a couple different directions you can take it. But at the end of the day, it looks like move blocking your opponent till they're blue in the face and shooting them on repeat in the process. It is glorious. It is Tyranids at their best, and I love it so much.
I do think you get to play a much more Tyranid stylish feeling Tyranid Goodo Gribbly time in teams than you do in singles. And that's purely because your modus operandi changes. You don't need to be scrambling to just win by 1 point. You need to push that differential, shut them down, strangle them, smother them, etc. Dustin, Nids in teams, anything to add?
I think I'm going to be echoing a lot of what Tyler said, and the Swarm is by far the best one for teams. There are other builds you can do, like you can do like a stat check synaptic. You could do the invasion fleet in singles because it does have a lot of good matchups and it doesn't lose very hard. But Swarm is by far the best. And I'm going to say too that Golonka is the first one to do it, but I firmly believe that the way he did Nids is the best way to play Nids right now. Because you were talking about before how Nids have like some of the best just data sheets in terms of like you're taking your detachment to just increase them by 10-20%. But if you were doing this with the Endless Swarm and you're taking like almost an invasion style list, minus like you don't take the Carnifex is likely in that one, but you're still taking all the X screens, you're taking the Maleceptor, you're throwing in a Tyrannifex in there we can talk about that. But if you're taking Endless Swarm and you're taking mostly an invasion fleet list, but you're adding in the two groups of 20 gargoyles with like 2 other 10s, you still are going to get so much use out of the respawning gargoyles because you're going to be able to throw them away every turn, respawn them because you're not spending your CP on anything else except maybe an Overwatching Tyrant effects, right? So suddenly this detachment that is kind of hard to use some of the CP for because there's so many tricks it does have when you're doing pure swarm. You now have a it's like regurgitating. You know what? It's Tyranids. That's actually accurate. Regurgitating gargoyle unit every round, and you still have all the data sheets that are going to be killing stuff, and you have the board pressure, board presence that you would have with Swarm. I actually think it's a great way to do it.
So there's so many concepts in our game. Best in slot is a concept, as in like this is the best thing internally in my faction for which to do a job, to do a XYZ job. And I'll say this: there is a big cliff with Tyranids that you go off after you have taken Exocrines, Maleceptors, and Gargoyles. You're just like, I mean, I feel like the HQs are just. I feel like the HQs are just dirt. Like I look at their HQs and I'm like, why are you here? Like, can I just take more of this stuff, please? But what I'm saying is the next level from best in slot is best in game, and they actually have quite a few best in game. Like, this is the best unit at this in the game. The Bivor is the best single model secondary generating unit in the game, bar none. It's not even close. Yeah. The next one's over the horizon, like literally a mile away. The Gargoyle is the best OC dumping move blocking unit in the game, because the shoot and scoot, the deep strike, the recursion, all those things, it is the best in the game. They have those two.
I'm sticking with regurgitating. I'm always regurgitating these gargoyles. I'm coining that.
Correct. Those two are the best in the game at the things that they do. The rest of them is good upper middle. Exocrines are pretty well up there.
The Neurolector might be the best piece of blown up in the game as well.
I was about to say, the debate here is how good is the Lictors? How good are the Neurolictors compared to their compatriots, the other low-priced utility lone ops out there? Like a Custodes Assassin is probably on par, right? But she's 90. How much? And Neurolictor's what, 65, 75?
80. Well, they're 80 now. They used to be 65.
Let's calm down now.
I think that the Custodes is competing with the Biovore. The Neurolictor's competitor is like the lone op Primaris Lieutenant from the box.
True.
I think
that those are
comparison is like the Changeling. I think that's the closest comparison.
If he still existed, I would agree. He's not in the game, unfortunately, anymore. So
deleted.
Yeah,
comes with 140-point pink heart attacks.
Hey, you can take blues for one.
Hey, unless you're in
they're terrible.
You're playing demons. You're just bringing the Changeling, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah, but then you're playing demons. So what are we talking about here?
It's true. All right. It's time for Dustin. Unlock the vault. Sell me on Brew Brothers, or sell the people on Brew Brothers. Then we're going to do 10 minutes of flipping the coin and telling people how to beat these factions. How do you deal with gargoyles? How do you shut down the Biovore? Those kind of stuff. All right. But Brew Brothers, pontificate. Let's go.
Well, I think we kind of covered most of it when we were talking earlier, right? It's literally you are taking board control when you're taking the Brood Brothers with GSC, which is generally going to be Taurox, Chimeras filled with Catachin, filled with Acadians.
So what I wanted was why? Why are we doing that rather than taking Akos and trucks and things like that? Why is that better?
Because of the cost. Let me put it this way. When I first took out my 10-man Aberrant infiltrating squad, just taking out that single unit, I put 3 Chimeras filled with 30 Catachin, and I still have points left over. That's from one squad. I go from one squad to 6.
Nuts.
The points difference is ridiculous. And those, like, the Chimeras with double heavy flamer can still do some damage. You have the Taurox in there if you wanted to have them as more action monkeys, because they can advance and still get out and act as if they stood still, right? So it's actually a big deal.
Yeah. They're also tiny.
They are also tiny. Yeah, it's actually their footprint is pretty small, which is great. And I mean, they have like grenades. They can do little dinky stuff, but it's the cost. Because GSC historically they used to be able to spam like little units of 5-man acolytes because they were 45 points and they could do all that stuff.
Correct.
Now they're double that cost, and you need them to kill stuff most of the time. So the main thing that GSC is missing is board control that is not doing your damage, and board control that's fast and cheap, which they are lacking right now. They are heavy lacking.
Yeah, it's very funny. GSC might be one of the worst offenders in terms of the free war gear economy, and seeing at both ends of the spectrum how horrible it can be.
100%.
That 5 naked acolytes, which used to be one of the cheapest and most effective trash units in the game, is suddenly 85 points.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So, and it's so unique to see that. That's a perfect example, Tyler. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because they're not paying as if they're naked with a couple of bits and pieces. They're paying because of the best possible stuff they can take, and that's what they're priced as. Whereas that is one of the very few examples of that in the game. Mostly people are about the middle of what you'd think they should cost. They should and could be cheaper if you took them bare bones, and sometimes you want to, but sometimes you can tool them up to the nines, like a Plague Marine, where you just like, okay, so no one has a bulk gun in this, right? Everyone's got a flamer and a fist and a thing and a knife and it's ridiculous. But still they're pointed at pretty much, previously. Now they're costed about right for what you get in the medium spectrum of war gear. Previously they were costed like they're all just had a shank and nothing else. Anyway, we're going to flip the coin and start talking about what people can do into these factions, because I do agree you can play against GSCs sometimes, and there are Maestro armies still, and they're popping up and popping down all over the place, and it's frustrating as hell. And then you can go second versus Tyranids, and by the end of turn 5 have left your deployment zone by about 4 inches, and you feel like, why did I rock up? How do people negotiate and manage these oppressive elements of these two armies? Tyler, you want to take it away?
Sure. Who do you want to start with?
We start wherever you feel strongest, mate.
I think the GSC are the easier answer, which is that if you want to be GSC, the correct answer is to face rush every single time. I talk about this a lot with Guard, where Guard are an indirect heavy army, so their shtick is they get to shoot you at functionally full efficiency no matter where you're standing on the table. So choose to stand in the place that is most inconvenient for them, namely like inside of their body, if possible.
Yeah. Wow.
And GSC are in a very similar position, because our entire shtick is the acolytes are going to get you no matter where you are. Obviously, if you've teched in Omni Scramblers or Rumblers or whatnot, so you have ways to prevent Deep Strike, that's a very different situation. But if we're talking about someone who doesn't have that kind of tech, deploy on the line, go as far as you can, as fast as you can, and take the entire table. Get in there. That's the first thing. The second thing is that, oh my God, does this army not like getting tagged in close combat? I will say that you have to be very, very careful in how you do this, because if you charge GSC, that doesn't actually do the thing, because they'll be able to pull models and break coherency and get out of combat and return to the shadows anyway, and then get models back. But if you can charge one thing, pile in or consolidate into another, or charge one unit, kill it, consolidate into another, or get in base contact with, or at least within an inch of their characters or the banners in the squads. That's incredibly irritating as a GSC player to deal with. Yep. That's a little bit a little more scalpely than the just rush them game plan. But if you have a chance to play into GSC 2 or 3 times, you'll figure out the pattern pretty quickly. Once you get them tagged in the right ways in the right places, the army falls to pieces immediately.
And very much GSC is a tempo army. They're front loaded. They usually turn 2, turn 3. The like 3/4 of their damage usually pops up. And if you are all over the board, or if you're making it that when they pop up, they're not generating points, even if they are picking up units, then they're not getting in return for their special rules. Like you can just be like, well, you can pop up and pop down because I can't really stop you. I don't have anything to push you back or anything to mess with your deep strikes. But I'm just going to make it so you can never do any of your shenanigans whilst on objectives. And you can usually take 15 points off their end score just by doing that.
And lastly, take fixed. Oh my God, take assassinate homers into GSC. It just works. It just does. If someone's built a way to make it so that they have very few characters, sure, maybe don't take it then. But into your standard run-of-the-mill GSC army, the amount of hoops you would have to jump through as a GSC player to actually deny assassinate while winning a game convincingly, it's just not real. You're just going to score 16 points minimum. Just go for it.
Fair. Dustin, anything to add there about how to pick apart GSC?
No, I think that's pretty clarified most of it there. Like they don't like being tagged. It's also one of the reasons that I was saying, like, you want more things on the board as a GSC player because you don't want to get tagged. That is very bad for you, which Bruno is great at. So you going hard into them, even if you're not great in close combat, it doesn't matter, because GSC in general right now, which is really sad, are not that great in close combat either, because we're tagging like neophytes. Like acolytes are okay. Like if you're tagging them with trash, they will kill them back. But the acolytes are the ones you shoot.
But also, like, the Acolytes don't do anything, right? Once they've thrown their bombs, as long as they're not in a position to get to your important trash units or something that you don't want tagged or an objective, like, you don't need to worry about that unit. They're going to be hopefully in a position where you have to deal with them to get the blips back. But
to be
once
honest,
the bombs are gone, like, you can just leave it.
Once the Acolytes have used their bomb, like Tyler said, the GSC player is usually going to throw them at you so they die because he wants to die at that point.
When you're talking about all this tagging, the thing that keeps coming to mind right now is the empty rhino. Nothing is more frustrating than you making a GSC player shoot an empty rhino. Yep. Just like, I'm just going to ram you with this thing. Sometimes I'll tank shock. I don't care. If it's a Chaos Rhino, it actually has a lot of guns as well. It's really, really quite frustrating how many guns it has that are good into GSC. Like a couple of Havocs, a couple of combis, kind of pick away at a 5-man really well. And you just run these empty things around the table after they've disgorged stuff on objectives and just start ramming them into things. Can get really frustrating. All right, flipping it, let's go over to Nids, starting with you, Dustin. What can people do to not get smothered by Nids or get proactive into Nids and start getting a winning footing?
Okay, well, first of all, you need to make sure that the Biovore doesn't get free teleport homers in your zone. So it's 9 inches. You need to be able to stop that from happening because that thing will score so many points for free if you don't. And it's frustrating because a lot of armies don't actually have that capability to really zone it out that efficiently. But if you can, you do that first and foremost. The big thing with Nids is the gargoyles that will just steal objectives every time. And there are things you can do about it. It's a very very niche way to move and move block of how to do it. Either you don't let them shoot wherever you're trying to block them from moving, because if they shoot, then they're going to move again, or you just make sure that they don't have the space to move onto the place you want to move them on, which can be frustrating because Nids have a lot of good shooting. So if you're out in the open where gargoyles can shoot you or you can't get on the objective, it means they can shoot you and do it anyway.
Yeah.
So Exocrines are they're so efficient for their points. They should have gone up. Tyler said it. They should have gone up. Let's be real. They are too cheap for what they do right now.
I'm of the opinion that they're probably the only thing in the book that should have gone up. Them, Biovore if you wanted to. I'm of the opinion people just need to fix Biovores and just say you can't get secondary points off this thing, please.
It needs to drop points if they do that.
Exactly right. Stop them being the auto points generating machine that they are, and let them be an actual unit again.
Yeah, But it is seriously the biggest thing to stop the Biovore from getting at least max points, because honestly, they're probably going to, if they're taking like cleanse or teleport, they're still going to get points with the damn thing, but at least don't let them get max points with it.
Yeah,
right.
Spot on. Negotiating the gargoyles seems to be the biggest thing. If you can just not get shut, like have your ability to get on the board shut down by gargoyles, all of a sudden the game is a game again. You can play, you have agency, you can interact. But how do you go, Tyler?
I think that's a little bit aspirational. I've seen people try to pull this off, and it usually involves bending themselves so out of shape that they end up in a really compromised position in the first place, where I don't really mind if you stay behind the wall. No, I can't move 6 more inches, but you're more than 6 inches further back anyway. The thing that you want to be doing into Unending Swarm that is like not necessarily super intuitive is, number one, do not shoot your guns at the gargoyles under any circumstances unless you have a single activation that comfortably wipes 20. And I mean comfortably, because that one guy surviving is a pain.
Yeah, we're talking gladiator reapers, we're talking flame, we're talking aggressors.
Land Raider Redeemers.
Correct. One shot, one tap, see you later, all 20 gone.
And if that's not the reality, and the reason you want to do that is you want to be able to charge with every single unit that you possibly can. Every unit that charges gets to consolidate, full stop. There's no way around that. So if you can one tap them in a unit in a fight phase, everyone gets it's to console, everyone that charged. If you don't charge, if you just shoot them, kill a couple, and they blood surge into you, you didn't charge. So only one unit's going to get to activate. It's going to pull the one model that is in combat with all 7 of your different units, and nobody else gets to go anywhere. They're all stuck, and we're going to do it again next turn.
Also, I would like to say that if your movement phase is shut down, you should think of your charge phase as your movement phase.
Absolutely.
Your opportunity to move has come up again in the charge phase. Please make it work for you. Make it work for you. Activate that phase, even if you're not going to do much damage. If it gets you on the objective, if it gets you to a position where they can't just do what they've done to you then, again, go for it.
Yeah.
Might as well.
And
Right? What's the worst?
if it's gonna take 2 turns of charging the stupid unit to get there, take 2 turns to do it. Like there's no benefit in standing in place if there's nothing good for you to shoot at. Just charge. The other thing, and it goes with this though, is really carefully watch where the gargoyles are in relation to the Neurotyrant and his unit. Because if the gargoyles ever fail a morale check, the Tyranid player's entire plan goes tits up. You need that unit to not be battle shocked in order to bring it back.
Yep.
So if at any point it's not within that 18-inch range of the unit to get the Neuraloid to make its leadership 8 check, like it's just a problem. If you have anything that causes a leadership check that is not a battle shock check, like Exalted 8-bound, for instance, Synapse doesn't work on that. So abuse that kind of rule on them as well. And the last thing is, if you whittle that unit down, do not kill it under any circumstances until it is battle shocked or you're killing both units at the same time.
Yep.
4 gargoyles being in your backfield deploying a teleport homer seems really annoying. But when that unit gets turned back into 20, it is significantly more annoying. So let them do the homer.
They only have one.
Yes. That as well. Your Tyranid opponent has made a tragic mistake if they end up in that situation, but do exploit it. So whittle things down, keep them small, don't finish stuff off, and be really careful with Overwatches in particular, because the timing is you kill the unit on Overwatch, it goes into strat reserve, it then arrives in that movement phase. And I've seen a lot of people think, "Oh, I'm so clever, I've killed this unit on your turn," and it's like, no, it's all back immediately.
Completely
Be careful with
back.
that.
All right, we're going to go into our last segment, which should only take a minute or two. Top 3 Tyranid detachments right now. And I think we already know. I think Unending Swarm is number 1, Invasion Fleet. So really, we're debating about number 3. Which one is the third best?
Okay, well, let's be clear. It's very close between Vanguard and Synaptic.
Those are the options, yeah.
They are the options, in fact.
Yeah, they are the options. If I had to pick one, because I've played both pretty extensively, I'm pretty sure it's Synaptic.
Yep, completely agree. I think Vanguard is absolute dog water. If you play into Vanguard and you thought it was easy to rush GSC, you should try rushing Vanguard because it's hilarious. That army is so smoke and mirrors. Oh no, you can't shoot me if you're not with it. It doesn't punch them. Punch them in the face. They go away.
Yeah, correct.
Go stand on the objectives. They can't take you off of them. Do it. We had this fantastic game of this happening at Charity Hammer this year where John Lennon tried to play Vanguard and our buddy Josh Bagwell just ripped him to pieces because there's just nothing that Vanguard can do about anything that's moderately durable standing anywhere.
I had a game that I watched. It was somewhat of a testing game where it was just 20 Primaris Crusaders with Grimaldus, and essentially they soloed the entire thing. They just soloed the whole thing. He didn't need to have any other units activate. Every other unit just sits on objectives. This one unit just walked through the whole thing, like didn't even get half killed. It was so dumb. They just hit like a wet noodle. And sure, if you are a freaking maestro of the game, you will feel like
play Swarm. Just play Swarm.
You will feel like a god getting 5-point wins in Vanguard, or you can play Swarm and just comfortably win by 20. That's pretty much how I feel about it. On that note, we are going to check out. Gentlemen, please plug your wares once again. Tyler, where can people find you if they want some more?
Absolutely. You can come over to youtube.com/statcheck or search for StatCheck anywhere that podcasts are found. I run a show there called Take All Comers, TAC for short. Our 5th episode will be recording live Saturday morning. March 16th on at youtube.com/statcheck if you want to check in and watch it there. Unfortunately, I'm not playing Nids there, but I do talk about Nids a lot, so there might be something for you.
Beautiful. Dusty.
Stutter Scrub every other Wednesday night with the Scarred one himself, Scary from Scarredcast. Ridvan Martinez. We do talk about our WTC journey every year, or every other week. So join us there anywhere you can find podcasts. Just search Stutter Scrub. You can find us, and obviously Warhammer Meditations. But I'm sure Adam plugs that enough on his own show. So.
I really don't actually. Warhammer Meditations Thursday night Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. I go live with the great Dusty One and the man himself, Paul Murphy. We talk about the 2 biggest or best events coming up for that weekend. Unpack the factions you are going to see there, that full faction breakdown, and then usually 2 spicy lists to give you an indication of who has shown up and who's there to play. Please go and join us over there. We do record it live on our YouTube channel and you can interact. We have a beautiful live chat interaction, chatting, talking crap with people there. And then, of course, you can watch it back on all the aggregates. Please look it up. That is Warhammer Meta Chasers. Hopefully, we will see you there. On that note, gentlemen, we're done. Say your good nights.
Night, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Tyler acting like he's the host for some reason there. Thank you very much. Love it. See you later.
Thank you for listening to Art of War Down Under, a content review podcast for Warhammer 40K, hosted by Adam Camilleri, produced by Seamus Ronan. Enjoyed the show? Want your lists reviewed and the content you heard put into practice? Sign up to our Patreon and connect with us online or on Facebook. Just search for Art of War Down Under. Signing out from tomorrow.